The night always had its way of unraveling secrets. When the world slowed, when voices grew quiet, and when the air thickened with stillness, that was when hearts dared to beat louder. For her, the nights had always been lonely, filled with dreams of what love might one day feel like. For him, the nights were burdensome, reminders of a past he could not change and a future he feared would be empty. Yet on one fateful evening, their lives collided, and the nights that followed burned with a fire neither of them had known before. She was 21, wide-eyed and full of yearning, her life still blooming with possibilities. She had always thought of herself as careful, cautious with her heart, unwilling to give it away to just anyone. But the moment she saw him, her rules began to blur. He was 40, seasoned, with an aura that drew people in without him even trying. His eyes carried the weight of years, but also a warmth that disarmed her. When their gazes locked, it felt like the world melted away, leaving only the unspoken electricity between them. Their first meeting was ordinary, too ordinary for the storm it would bring. A chance encounter at a late-night gathering, where laughter mingled with soft music and candlelight flickered against the walls. She was seated alone, a glass of wine in hand, watching the world with quiet curiosity. He noticed her in that stillness, drawn by the mix of innocence and mystery in her face. When he approached, she looked up, and in that second, both of them felt the shift. The conversation was light, almost casual, but beneath it ran an undercurrent neither could deny. She felt the thrill of his attention. He felt the spark of her presence. One meeting turned into two, and then many more. They told themselves it was just companionship, two souls sharing words under the guise of friendship. But the tension between them deepened with every passing night. She would lean in when he spoke, her lips parting with interest, her eyes searching his as though he held the answers to questions she hadn't yet asked. He, in turn, found himself captivated by her laughter, the brightness of her spirit, the way she looked at him as though he was more than his past mistakes, more than his age. The night it happened was one they would never forget. They were walking along a quiet street after dinner, the air cool, the stars scattered across the sky. She brushed against his arm as they walked, a fleeting touch that made his pulse quicken. When they stopped under a lone street lamp, the silence grew heavy. She looked up at him, her lips trembling with something she wanted but didn't dare voice. He hesitated, knowing he should step back, but her gaze held him captive. And then, without words, their lips met. The kiss was gentle at first, cautious, but quickly it grew deeper, fiercer, as though all the nights of longing had finally found release. From then on, they were no longer safe. Every night they stole became a night of fire. Their love existed in shadows, behind locked doors and whispered words, yet it burned brighter than anything either of them had known. She would slip into his apartment when the city slept, her heart racing with both fear and excitement. He would greet her with a hunger in his eyes, pulling her into his arms before words could pass between them. Their kisses were desperate, their bodies entwined in a rhythm that was both tender and wild. She marveled at the way he touched her, not just with passion but with reverence, as though she was something sacred. He cherished her youth, her warmth, the way she made him feel alive again. Nights became their sanctuary, a world where time lost meaning. He would trace the curve of her body as candlelight flickered across her skin, memorizing her as if afraid she might vanish. She would bury her face against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, whispering secrets only he would ever hear. They laughed in those moments too, not just lovers but companions, finding joy in the simplest things. The taste of wine on their lips, the music they danced to in the middle of the night, the comfort of silence shared between two souls who understood each other. But passion, as intoxicating as it was, came with its shadows. They knew what they had was fragile, dangerous even. She was young, with a future ahead of her that could be stained by whispers and judgment. He was older, carrying responsibilities, aware that the world would not forgive him for falling into this forbidden love. Yet neither could resist. Their secret burned hotter the more they tried to contain it. Every risk only fueled their desire, every close call made their bond deeper. There were nights when doubt crept in. She would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if what they shared was strong enough to survive the world's scorn. He would watch her sleep, torn between the guilt of wanting her and the joy of having her. But when she woke and smiled at him, when her arms curled around him as though he was her only refuge, his doubts dissolved. She was his, and he was hers, no matter the cost. Their love was not built on illusions. They knew the dangers, the sacrifices. Yet the fire between them demanded to be fed, and so they continued, choosing each other again and again. She brought out the man he thought he had lost, the dreamer, the lover, the soul unafraid of passion. He gave her a taste of a love that was fierce, unwavering, and real, a love she had only ever imagined. One night, as dawn threatened to break, she whispered, "Do you think this can last?" He held her close, his voice low but steady. "If it burns us, let it. I would rather be consumed by this fire than live without it." Her heart swelled at his words, and she kissed him with a ferocity that promised forever. And so, they lived in those burning nights, knowing each one might be their last, but also knowing each one was worth everything. Their passion was endless, not because it was safe, but because it was real. And in the end, real love doesn't ask for permission. It simply demands to be felt, no matter the cost. The world outside would never understand. The world would judge, condemn, whisper. But in the dark, in the hours when it was just them, none of that mattered. Their love was a secret inferno, hidden from the eyes of others but searing in its truth. It was dangerous, it was forbidden, but it was theirs. And in that truth, they found everything they had ever needed. Because some loves don't fade with time. Some loves don't bend under the weight of judgment. Some loves burn so brightly that even the night itself cannot contain them. Theirs was that kind of love, burning nights filled with endless passion, a flame that would never die, no matter how the world tried to smother it. The nights seemed endless, yet fleeting. Every stolen moment together was both a lifetime and a whisper, and each time they parted, the ache of absence grew heavier. She would walk away from him with trembling steps, her heart pulling her back even as her body carried her forward. He would stand at the window, watching her disappear into the night, torn between the instinct to protect her by letting go and the impossible truth that he could not. One evening, the rain poured down in a relentless curtain, soaking the streets, filling the night with the music of droplets striking the earth. She arrived at his door, her hair damp, her clothes clinging to her skin. He opened the door, surprised, but the look in her eyes said everything before words could. She fell into his arms, trembling, not from the cold but from the weight of her own feelings. He kissed her forehead, whispering, "You shouldn't have come in this weather." She shook her head, her lips finding his. "I couldn't stay away. I never can." That night was unlike the others. The storm outside mirrored the fire inside, wild and untamed. They moved together with urgency, as though the world might end with the dawn. Every kiss was a plea, every touch a vow. He whispered her name as though it was a prayer, and she whispered his with devotion that promised eternity. Wrapped in sheets, with lightning flashing through the window, they held each other as though the universe had created that moment solely for them. Later, lying against his chest, she spoke the words she had been too afraid to say. "I love you." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the sound of rain and his heartbeat. He lifted her chin, searching her eyes, and for the first time, he allowed himself to say what he had buried deep. "I love you too. More than I ever thought I could again." Her smile broke the darkness, and he felt the weight of years slip from his shoulders. For her, love was discovery, new and thrilling. For him, it was rebirth, a reminder that his heart still had the capacity to beat with passion and hope. But with love came fear. She feared losing him, feared the world's judgment, feared the whispers that would call her reckless. He feared that time would steal her away, that she would one day wake up and realize she wanted something simpler, something less complicated than him. Yet despite those fears, neither could stop. The nights were worth the risk, worth the uncertainty. There was a beauty in their fragility, in knowing their love was both dangerous and sacred. And as dawn crept across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold, they held each other tightly, refusing to let go. Because in those burning nights, they had found something rare, something worth every consequence. A love that was wild, forbidden, and endlessly, hopelessly passionate.